Today, in a surprising turn of events, the government is open. Late last night, with less than an hour before a potential shutdown, President Biden signed a stopgap funding bill into law. The continuing resolution passed by both the House and Senate with bipartisan majorities will keep the government funded until November 17th. The bill includes disaster relief funds, an extension of federal flood insurance program, and FAA reauthorization, but no aid for Ukraine, despite widespread bipartisan support for it in the Senate. President Biden was quick to address the issue, saying in a statement that he, quote, fully expects House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to keep his commitment to the people of Ukraine, an expectation that could prove difficult for McCarthy. In the run-up to the now averted shutdown, the embattled speaker endured one embarrassing defeat after another at the hands of far-right members of his own party. Now, after putting a bill on the floor that won Democratic support, he faces the threat of being ousted by those same members. And that could put the Republican speaker's future in the hands of Democrats. In 45 days, we could be right back where we were just 24 hours ago, staring at yet another looming government shutdown as the nation and the world watches in wonder and horror at the messiness of American democracy. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this hard, but it will be, as long as Speaker McCarthy bends to the will of a minority of his Republican majority that came to Washington for the sole purpose of burning it down. The American people and American leadership around the world be damned. Joining me now in studio, Shalanda Young, Director of the Office of Management and Budget. Director Young, welcome back to the Sunday Show.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you very much for being here. So let's go back to the middle of the beginning, and that is the debt ceiling deal that was struck in early summer. What was in that deal?
The deal was that we would keep spending at current levels, so there would be no cuts in things like NIH, Head Start, women and children nutrition, so programs Americans rely on that we see every day, Head Start. And the defense number would be the president's budget. Now, as you pointed out in your opening dialogue, the speaker put bill after bill on the floor that violated that deal with deep, deep cuts to everything from NIH to losing 12,000 FBI agents. And those bills, thankfully, did not make it out of the House of Representatives. They would have been devastating.
And what I'm wondering about here is, you know, this wasn't just a handshake agreement. This was a law. The House passed it. The Senate passed it. The president signed it into law, and we averted going over a cliff with the United States not honoring its debts and obligations. How is it possible that the speaker didn't honor that deal? I'm trying to understand why we were in this position in the first place.
Well, Jonathan, please don't ask me to explain the thinking and not living by the deal. All you have in this world, I was taught from a young age, is your word. And it's not just a word, it's the law. And thankfully, the speaker decided to work with bipartisan members of Congress who want to live by the deal, do the right thing, get out of this brinksmanship. And that's what happened. When we lived by the deal, when the speaker put that bill on the floor, guess what? Democrats showed up. Enough Republicans showed up to avert the worst case situation, a shutdown.
And so now the hard part begins. You've got 45, or is it 47 days, really, to everyone's saying 45, but it's 47 days to now hammer out a deal, either to get all of the appropriations bills passed so that there is a budget, or 45 days to come up with another continuing resolution. How hard is your job starting tomorrow?
Look, I used to do this from the congressional side. It's not easy, but let's start now. Why wait to the last minute? Every parent in this country tells their children, don't wait to the last minute. Why are you up to midnight doing your book report? Okay, let's follow all our parents' advice and not wait to the last minute to get this done. The American people don't get this. They do not understand why this town, this Congress waits to the last minute and puts a lot of people on edge to finally do the right thing. So we are calling on the Speaker to let's start. Let's start now. Let's start to get full year bills. Forget this kicking of the can down the road for 45, 47 days. Again, we have to start now on full year bills to meet our obligations of the American people.
So let's talk about some of the things that were sticking points in even the conversations about a continuing resolution. There was talk about border security funding. The cuts you were talking about were 30% cuts to non-defense discretionary funding, Ukraine aid. When it comes to the cuts, is there a willingness on the part of the White House to meet the Republicans a little bit who want more cuts?
Jonathan, we negotiated. You pointed out it's the law. We're going to follow the law. That debt deal, I will never forget, was long and tortured, and we protected the full faith and credit of the United States. But what we also did is set budget top lines that, by the way, saved $1 trillion over 10 years, so it was fiscally responsible. But it also set a path so we did not have this brinksmanship. So we've negotiated. We'll negotiate on now the details to carry out the plan. But why would we violate the deal we've already struck?
Well, one of the complaints of Speaker McCarthy was that, yeah, there's this deal, but the Senate is putting in more money over those the limits that were in that deal for the debt ceiling. What's the response to that? Why is it good to add more money, but not good to cut?
Let me tell you what a hallmark of the deal in the summer was: bipartisanship. Votes from both sides of the aisle. Look at what the Senate is doing versus the House on spending bills. Bipartisan votes to get these spending bills out of committee, onto the floor. Bipartisan, bipartisan, bipartisan. The Senate is doing its business in a way where there is a path to actually getting things done. So I appreciate, the Speaker saying, if they can do this, I can do that. The only way to get these bills to the president's desk is to do the work in a bipartisan manner. The Senate's doing that.
And the word there is compromise. Not
right.
Everybody gets what they want. One of the complaints of the Speaker this go-round was sort of a repeat of what he was saying last go-round, and that was the White House isn't involved. The president needs to be a part of this. Given what you just said in a previous answer, should we expect the White House to now, in these 45 days, be more visibly active?
Let me tell you, this is a 47-day continuing resolution, a stopgap measure. What is there to talk about? Literally, stick by the deal we struck this summer. Set top lines. This isn't the vast amount of details that come in full year bills. There was no negotiation needed. We just needed people to honor the deal, honor the law, and basically do the bare minimum. Keep the government open for 47 days, provide disaster relief as the president requested. We finally got it done.
Disaster relief. And Ukraine aid?
Ukraine aid, we are committed. There are bipartisan members of Congress committed to keeping our word to the people of Ukraine. And by the way, the Speaker has been on record saying this is the right thing to do to provide Americans the support. So we expect the Speaker, you saw the president's statement, to keep his commitment to the people of Ukraine. And we've seen votes in the House that shows commitment on a bipartisan basis is there for Ukrainian aid. And we will keep the pressure on because it's the right thing to do. It's about what do you stand for? Democratic values, and protecting those democratic values, the sovereignty of a nation, helping the Ukrainians defend against a dictator in Russia.